Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. I am Carissa, and I am the Content and Partnership Manager here at Horseman's Pride. And I'm excited to be joined today with Dr. Kirsty Husby, who will be helping us wrap up Equine Enrichment Week with a little Q&A session. Dr. Kirsty Husby is a veterinarian who has worked within the large and the small animal vet spaces, and she is currently the Senior Technical Services veterinarian at Spring. So before we kind of dive into further introductions and all of the stuff that we'll be talking about today, do you want to kind of just give us some background into what Spring is?
Yes, thanks, Carissa. Spring is an intra-articular injection for use in horses, dogs, and cats that are afflicted with osteoarthritis. It is injected into the joint and encourages a remodeling of the synovial tissue to reduce signs of joint pain and inflammation and chronic arthritis.
And this is something that veterinarians can bring into their on the field and use on their equine patients as well as dog and cat patients, correct?
Yes, absolutely. Horse veterinarians have been injecting joints for years and years and years, and we are seeing this modality become more common in our canine and feline patients. And so, yes, it can absolutely be used by any veterinarian for intra-articular injection.
Awesome. Perfect. Thank you for sharing just a little bit of background on what Spring is. Before we dive in, I just wanted to share just a little bit of background about Horseman's Pride as well. Our mission is to raise awareness around the importance of equine enrichment. All day, every day, and especially this week. We were founded in 1976 and worked to develop different products to bring innovative ways for horses and their owners to grow closer together through horses' natural instincts. So with these different products, we hope to encourage active play, mental stimulation, as well as exercise for horse and rider to bond closer together and live happy and healthier lives with their horses. So we dedicated this whole week to celebrate equine enrichment with various thought leaders and equine enrichment advocates to share the power of play as an important aspect to incorporate into every horse's life and into their daily routine. All of this information that we've been sharing throughout the week can be found on our website if you go to the link below. And of course, we wanted to share a chance for you guys to win an Equine Enrichment prize pack. So we will be announcing the winner at the end of this Q&A session, so stick around for that. It involved a $200 gift card to Horseman's Pride and neem and shampoo conditioner from Equiderma, free access to the ground pull workout program from Equine Bodywork Online, and an equine noodle glove and microfiber towel from Jolly Pets Travel by Henry Wag. So don't miss out because you might be the winner of our prize pack. With all of that said, let's kind of dive into who you are, Dr. Kirsty, and we can go into our Q&A here. If you wouldn't mind introducing yourself and your background and kind of just a little bit more about your insight into equine health and wellness as a whole.
Yeah, of course. I am a long-term, lifelong horse lover. I have owned horses and competed with horses in eventing. Eventing is my area of interest, and so as a horse crazy girl, I went on into veterinary school with a focus on equine medicine. Did an internship in residency, and I'm a board-certified large animal or equine surgeon. And continue to ride and event these days. So really love my horse time still. So
awesome. What kind of eventing do you do?
3-day eventing. So it's dressage, cross country, and then stadium jumping on the third day or whatever day. So
you have horses of your own, right?
I have a off the track thoroughbred, and his name is Durbin. So he's a quirky little guy, but he likes to run fast and jump over things. So
awesome. Awesome. Thank you for just sharing a little bit of background about yourself there too. It's really exciting to be able to speak with you. So thank you for taking the time with us today. So we have a few frequently asked questions from horse owners around equine enrichment. So without further ado, are you ready to dive in?
Absolutely. Let's go.
Awesome. All right. Well, first and foremost, why is equine enrichment so important for a horse's overall well-being?
So, horses are very social and highly intelligent animals, and they thrive on mental and physical engagement. So, we've all seen them out playing in the fields with each other, running around, engaging in companion grooming behaviors, all those sorts of things. And enrichment really helps fulfill their natural instincts, reduces stress and anxiety, and helps to prevent undesirable behaviors. So, things like cribbing, weaving, stall walking, etc. Horses spend a lot of time, or some horses spend a lot of time stalled, and enrichment and exercise is really important for these guys. And because they've evolved as grazing animals that traveled many miles during the course of the day, and some of our wild horses have been known to travel 20 to 50 miles a day. So when they spend time, long periods of time in a stall, eating only a couple times a day, it's not really what they were well designed for. And enrichment activities can really help keep these horses mentally stimulated, engaged in their environment, and overall more content with their life and living situation. And especially in some of our older horses that have limited mobility for whatever reason, it can be super important to help maintain their healthy brain, reduce frustrations, and prevent stiffness without overexertion as they kind of go through the stages of life.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you have any feedback too as to how kind of that human animal like bond can also play into those enrichment activities that you can start doing with your horse?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we all love our barn time, and so having that time where we're, experiencing those good endorphins with our horses, either through grooming or stretching exercises, massage, things like that, can really help to kind of develop that bond between horse and owner, or horse and human, which also develops that trust between them as partnership and pair that can kind of really be seen as you're continuing, under saddle training and things like that.
Yeah, awesome. Next question, you kind of touched on this with the cribbing and the weaving aspects, but what are some other common signs that a horse is bored or lacking mental stimulation?
Yeah, so horses often express their boredom through these so-called stereotypical behaviors. So pawing, wood chewing, weaving, stall walking. Sometimes you even, they even get nippy. So we've all been to barns where, there's a horse cribbing in one stall, or there's a horse that tries to bite you as you walk by because they've spent so much time in their stall. And cribbing is so common that we actually we know that it predisposes horses to certain types of colic, because it increases the intra-abdominal pressure when they go through those cribbing activities. And we've even developed surgical procedures to remove those muscles in the neck to potentially prevent horses from cribbing. So these can be pretty significant behaviors that they develop. But there certainly are more subtle signs that we can see. So things like having a dull expression, loss of curiosity, resistance during handling, bucking behaviors when we're riding them, things like this that can be super frustrating for owners. And going back to our horse, human bond, these types of things can really interfere with those as well. Sometimes in our older horses that are arthritic, maybe they can be, the boredom can be compounded by being uncomfortable. And this can lead to, reluctance to move, which can exacerbate pain. And so, really knowing your horse and being able to recognize these behaviors, or when they're not, fully mentally engaged and happy, is important so that we can kind of continue to support their physical well-being through providing enrichment and doing things that will help kind of promote that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's just like such an important thing to call out, especially when you do think of cribbing, getting to kind of that extreme level of where you would actually have surgery for them to like remove that. If you can just kind of implement small things to mitigate that, I mean, I mean, it's a cost savings in and of itself, and something that you wouldn't have to ever put your horse through to have to do that, and take away those negative behaviors of them feeling the need to actually have to crib. So that's really important insight there, I think, to take away. Our next question is, how can horse owners safely introduce new enrichment activities?
So I think the key to introducing new enrichment activities is really to start gradually and assess your horse's response. And, it may be varied depending on your horse's temperament, any mobility issues, any dietary limitations, things like that. For example, I've always owned off the track thoroughbreds, and my last horse was terrified of certain things like jolly balls. Jolly balls were the scariest things in the world. So if I had brought a jolly ball into his stall or his run, he would have been on the opposite side, as far away as he could get from it in the world. So that would have not been a great enrichment option for him. But he, being an off the track thoroughbred, also, kind of a hard keeper, really, really loved food enrichment type of activities. And so it was really easy to use these to kind of help stimulate him. And then I've also managed, horses in hospital that have been stall confined for long periods of time, and had to come up with things like hanging a gallon jug from the ceiling with oats in it that they can kind of knock around. So, considering their particular needs and personalities is important. And then when introducing an activity, make sure that you allow them time to investigate it slowly and at their own pace. I always think of, my thoroughbred who's always got his ears forward and his nostrils flared as he's like checking out something new. But give them time to kind of investigate it, learn that it's not something that's, imminent death. And then kind of see how they are going to respond to it. So, for example, if you have some, textured mats or lick mats or something, let them kind of investigate it. And then, before like expecting them to just go straight to licking or stepping on them. And if you're using slow feeders or puzzle toys, make sure that you're monitoring them so they're not becoming frustrated if they can't, they're not getting the treat out or something like that, because that could, maybe, exacerbate an issue versus really help. So, just using close observation, go slowly, and then monitoring to make sure the horse stays comfortable and engaged with the activity.
Awesome. All right. Next one. Are there specific types of enrichment that are better suited for young horses versus senior horses?
Yeah, of course. Just like we talked about, enrichment really should be ideally tailored to the horse's, particular personality as well as their age and physical condition. So young horses can benefit from activities that kind of challenge their coordination and learning abilities. So, things such as agility obstacles, novel objects to investigate, ground poles, things like this that kind of enhance their mental stimulation as well as promote some of those learning behaviors can be really useful for for these guys. Also, things like balls and barrels and things that they can play with when they're out in turnout or if they have a run or whatever, those can be super helpful as well to kind of keep them entertained and occupied in their in their downtime or when they're not engaged in training. And then in contrast, when we have some of our senior horses that may have physical limitations or dietary issues, we have to make sure that we're picking enrichment activities that are going to fit with these things. So if we have an older arthritic horse, we probably want to select activities that are low impact. Things like stretching exercises, massage therapy, things like that are not going to, put extra strain on their joints. And then, if we have a horse that has metabolic disease or some sort of dietary restrictions, or they're an easy keeper, we want to make sure that we use, dietary enrichment such that we're not going to make these things worse. So slow feeding hay nets can be, or, the slow feeding ball balls can be, or hay balls can be really good options for some of these horses that, chow down their hay in 30 minutes, and then, you can't give them more because otherwise they'd blow up like a balloon. So these are some great options for these guys. Forage boxes, things like that, are really great for some older horses that have limited mobility. Maybe they can't, move around a bunch. Scratch boards, texture boards, hanging toys. These can all be good options for older horses that may not be as physically active, but still crave mental engagement.
Awesome. Yeah, I feel like you really just have to tailor it throughout their life, and whatever kind of reflects responds well to like their bodies and their physical needs. So
Yeah.
awesome. Great insight there, Dr. Kirsty. Appreciate that. Next question we have is, how does movement-based enrichment like track systems or ground poles affect joint health and mobility? Can it play a role in injury prevention or rehabilitation? I think you kind of touched on a couple of these things, but yeah, feel free to elaborate even more there.
Yeah, so these things can be greatly beneficial for joint health and mobility. These kind of movement activities help keep the joint fluid moving around in the joint, which helps encourage normal, healthy joint function. And the movement also helps keep the surrounding muscles, tendons, and ligaments in use, which keeps, our strength up, as well as prevents atrophy and weakness of these structures. So these systems can be really helpful to, kind of keep the body's strength in play. And, like track systems promote more natural movement. They encourage horses to walk and explore, which can prevent excessive stall time and associated stiffness. And then our ground poles really help to improve our proprioception, or teaching, the horses that they got to pick up their limbs appropriately. So it teaches body awareness. These can be really good activities for our younger horses, which also then is going to help strengthen our supporting muscles and tendons and ligaments. These can be really helpful for some of our horses that are in rehab programs, or they're coming back from some, injuries, and they're not able to be ridden yet, but they're able to, be out and doing some hand walking or some sort of less strenuous activities to kind of help build their strength. These can be really great options for that, and help to reduce some of the boredom and monotony of basically just walking up and down the shed row every day, as their kind of walking time. But older horses also can benefit from some of these activities, because we know that, when we're moving, we're kind of keeping that joint in motion, and keeping those, building that joint structure, as well as maintaining strength around that joint. And we've all seen those old horses that kind of, get up from laying down, and it takes them a while, and then they hobble for a few steps, and then they're okay. And these activities can kind of help maintain that joint health and strength, and the ability to kind of move around. So definitely these activities can be helpful for, keeping strength in the limbs, maintaining joint health, and promoting mobility.
How often should enrichment activities be rotated or changed to keep things interesting?
That's a great question. Horses thrive on routine, but also appreciate novelty, right? As we all do. So rotating enrichment activities every few days to a couple weeks, depending on the activity, can help keep their interests peaked while maintaining still a sense of familiarity. But this depends a little bit on the horse and their preferences and the personality and the activity. So, for example, some horses will play with their paddock balls or toys every day, or they will love to use their scratch pads, or things like that every day to get a good, butt scratch or whatever. And so these are probably some activities that need to be changed out less often, as long as we notice that the horse is still clearly using them and benefiting from their presence, and they're not appearing to become frustrated with any of those. But some other activities such as our, hanging toys or our forage boxes, treat balls, those can potentially be swapped out for different options more
Mhm.
frequently. Just because, obviously if you have a treat ball, you probably need to refill it with treats and the horse might become bored with that. And so creating new and different ways for them to explore those things can be really helpful. The other thing that you can do that sometimes is change, but an easier change is to maybe change the location of a slow feeder or altering your, if you have a scent enrichment station, changing that or adjusting your, maybe you have a scratch pad, but changing it to a different type of scratching surface so that you're sort of keeping some of the same things, but changing out the ways they're being used or where they're being used. Those can also be helpful.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, it's really like you don't necessarily have to reinvent the wheel when you're thinking about some of these things. I mean, it could just be, like you said, as simple as changing a location of hay ball or treat ball that they already have and use, just putting it in a different spot in the pasture. So awesome. We think we have two more questions here, and then we'll kind of wrap things up and see who our giveaway winner is.
Awesome.
So, how can body work, such as massage or stretching, be incorporated into an enrichment routine to support long term soundness?
Body work is a fantastic addition to any enrichment plan, and especially for some of our horses that are working a lot in like high level activity, or some of our school horses that are used often, or even our older horses with arthritis or joint disease or metabolic disease. Massage improves circulation and reduces muscle tension, as well as enhances our joint flexibility. And it's an excellent pre or post activity routine. We also know that we get endorphins released, right, when we're good endorphins when we're getting massage and things going on. And so, like we talked about earlier, this is one of those things that can really help enhance that human horse bond if we're engaging in some massage and those kinds of activities as well. Gentle stretching exercises can really help to maintain range of motion and prevent stiffness. uh, Simple things like carrot stretches, tail pulls, passive limb stretches, putting legs through range of motion, things like that can very easily be incorporated into our, daily care along with our, regular grooming routines. And many, many horses love these activities. And I've seen so many owners utilize these techniques over the years, especially in horses that are in rehab programs, to both assist with rehabilitation and keeping those muscles strong, as well as to keep them, those horses mentally stimulated while we're in our rehab program. And we all like our barn time, so we want to make sure that we get out there and get that time with our horses, even when they're going through a rehab program.
Yeah,
You can,
absolutely.
you can also incorporate things like tactile enrichment. You can use different brushes, change out your brushes when you're grooming your horse, different massage tools that can help stimulate circulation and provide comfort as well. So, but just make sure when you do so that you're, gauging your horse's response. So if he doesn't like something, you can, take it back or not continue to do it.
Could something like the hay ball like be used as a distraction for some of those things? Yeah.
Absolutely. That's absolutely a good idea. I mean, a lot of times, what I've seen people do, or even what I do, is tie a slow feed or hay net or a hay ball or whatever in the stall, and horse isn't tied, and they will just happily munch away and just enjoy the good massage that they're getting, or the grooming or whatever. And that's an excellent, really nice way to spend some time with your horse.
Awesome. Okay, last question that we have for you, Dr. Kirsty, is how can horse owners tell if an enrichment activity is working or if it's causing stress?
So that's a good question. The best indicators that an enrichment activity is working is that the horse will have increased curiosity, engagement, and relaxation when they're engaging with the item or doing the activity. So they should appear interested but not anxious. So they should have soft eyes, relaxed jaw, positive body language, be moving forward. Uh, as well as not kind of gentle tail swishing, kind of that interested expression versus having their ears pinned, having their muscles tense, that really aggressive tail swishing, snorting, or like backing away, not wanting to get near the objects. Those all will potentially indicate that they are not comfortable with the situation. And if a horse reacts negatively, it's important to kind of modify or discontinue the activity and try a different approach. So always try to listen to the horse's feedback, as enrichment really should be enjoyable and beneficial and not overwhelming. So make sure, whenever we're introducing a new activity, to do it slowly and allow the horse time to investigate, and then watch their body language to tell if it's something that they will react positively to. Like I know for my horse, if I had, tried to introduce a jolly ball or any kind of ball, it seemed to, immediately indicate that death was coming. So I tried to avoid all of those.
Oh no. But no, that's good to know. I mean, and that is why, it's so important to dial in, like, us as Horseman's Pride and looking at these different things and what works for different horses. Some horses, all the horses that I've ever owned were all food motivated. So, I mean, unless I slathered something tasty on the Jolly Ball, they probably wouldn't go for it. But that's why it's so important, I think, to have all of those different options so that horse owners everywhere can introduce those to their own horse's life. I do have like one follow-up question for this. In terms of using enrichment, would you ever consider or recommend, if a horse is showing kind of maybe some fear or stress to a particular enrichment item, could it be utilized as a confidence builder, or are there any ways to kind of incorporate that as just a confidence building tool?
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. But there's and that's kind of the method behind going slowly, because
Mhm.
that's where the horse kind of develops his confidence, as he kind of gets brave enough to get close enough to it to realize that maybe it doesn't indicate that death is coming. And then builds his confidence to maybe, oh, actually, it's not scary. I can play with this item. But that's going to depend, a little bit both on, how you as the owner are interacting with them during the process of introducing that thing, making sure that you're kind of reinforcing positive feedback. Maybe if they are treat motivated, you have some treats there for them to kind of help entice them to want to come over and investigate it, versus pulling on the lead line, forcing them to come up and see it, and then kind of gauging, working with them and gauging their ability to kind of move forward. There's certainly going to be some things that maybe some horses are like, hell no, I'm not getting near that thing. Whereas there are certainly times where, you will get them up to it, and then they'll be like, yeah, absolutely. I like this now. I want this in my life. So it's a little bit of that, reading your horse, kind of encouraging them, providing positive feedback, and then kind of going from there.
Awesome. All right. Thank you, Dr. Kirsty. That was our last question, plus my extra question there at the end. But I'd like to see if there's anything additional that you would like to share, in terms of equine enrichment. I know that's what we're been focused on, but also just equine health or anything like that in general.
Yeah, the only thing I would say is that if you do have a horse that has any physical abilities or is going through a rehab program or things like that, make sure you check in with your veterinarian, to see if any enrichment tool that you want to use is going to be appropriate, because you certainly don't want to do anything if they're, for example, if they're going through a rehab process that's going to, place that in jeopardy. So make sure you check in with your veterinarian on those cases.
Yeah, very good advice. Well, thank you again for joining us, Dr. Kirsty, and for your insight and all your recommendations and tips as well. Just a reminder to everyone that is watching, the full Q&A will be on our website, along with all of our equine enrichment information that we've been sharing throughout the week. So you can find that by going to the link below if you ever need to refer back to it at any time. And so now that we're kind of closing out our session here, we can go ahead and see who our giveaway winner is. I just want to say thank you again to our sponsors, Equiderma, Equine Bodywork Online, and Jolly Pets, for sponsoring all of those incredible additional prizes. And congratulations to our winner. We will be reaching out to them via email, and we will coordinate shipping fulfillment of your prizes. And thank you, everybody who sat with us today and joined our giveaway and followed along with us as we celebrated Equine Enrichment Week. And of course, thank you to Dr. Kirsty for joining us and sitting down here, sharing her feedback and her background with us. Really looking forward to the next time that we get to sit down and have a chat again, and appreciate your time today.
Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks, everyone. And congrats again to our winner. Take care.